Hello, welcome back to episode 4 of the Goalkeeper.com podcast, now only hours away from the World Cup final between France and Argentina. Joining me today to discuss the two number ones, Emi Martinez and Hugo Lloris, amongst other things, is our data guru, the man with the facts, stats and maths, Goalkeeper.com's very own astronomer goalkeeper, Dr. John Harrison, and ex-England international goalkeeper, Chris Kirkland. Chris, been a while since I last saw you. How have you been?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, really good. Keeping busy, keeping active. Obviously, the mental health stuff's been out there now and the addiction stuff, but no, 8 months on Sunday. So, no, all good, mate. Yeah, all good. Just looking forward to Christmas now.
No, indeed, aren't we all? I mean, John, obviously I see you every day, but nevertheless, it's still a pleasure. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Again, not too bad at all. Kind of glad the World Cup's coming to an end because it's been very hectic. But yeah, I'm looking forward to digging into the podcast and having a look what we're going to expect from these goalkeepers on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, indeed. Fantastic. Well, coming up in today's episode, Chris will talk us through his experiences of international camps, his thoughts on England and their exit and where the Three Lions can go next, and his take on the standard of goalkeeping at the World Cup so far. John will deep dive into all the numbers that have defined Lloris and Martinez's tournament so far, and we talk crossing, one of the most difficult skills that Argentina's number one has mastered. Finally, I spoke to Leeds United goalkeeper coach Marcos Abad about how Premier League goalkeeper departments have adapted to the winter break. But to begin, we've seen two of the tournament's underdogs now drop out of the semi-final stage. Obviously, Morocco's Yassine Bounou and Croatia's Dominik Livakovic will be heading home without the fairy tale ending that I think their performances probably deserved. And Chris, as someone who played at the very, very top level for a number of years, what have you made of the general standard of goalkeeping at the World Cup so far?
I think it's been very good. I really do. You just mentioned the two keepers there. Arguably the best two keepers in the competition. The Moroccan keeper, only one own goal before the France game the other night. Yeah. Commanding, big, strong, very confident. Emi, I actually worked with, Emi Martinez at Sheffield Wednesday for a year.
Yeah.
He come on loan there. Confident lad. You could always tell he was extremely confident. Not shy, but in a good way. Would I said he'd have gone on to play in a World Cup final a few years later? Probably not, if I'm being honest. But just goes to show with hard work, commitment, self-belief, you can achieve anything. So he's been amazing. Lloris, obviously the other night, I think we all jinxed ourselves, and particularly the press, saying that he was going to be the weak link. Listen, he's performed yes, he has made mistakes, and he's made probably a little bit more mistakes than some other keepers, but he's been in the Premier League for years and years and years. He's captain of Tottenham Hotspur, and you don't stay in the Premier League, especially at a big club, if you're not a very good goalkeeper. And he is, and he proved it the other night. And as I said, I think all the English press were hoping and saying he was going to give us a mistake and he was going to be the weak link, and it seriously backfired against us. I thought he was outstanding. The save off, I can't remember, it was off on the edge of the box, the tip over.
Yeah,
Bellingham, yeah. So he's been steady. I actually think France will win. I think I've just got a feeling that they're going to beat Argentina. I think as a team they've got better players. Griezmann's been unbelievable for France. Probably the player of the tournament for me. He's the glue that holds it all together. So, but listen, it's going to be a great final. Argentina will be hoping Messi can produce magic one more time. And listen, if you ask me who I want to win, I want Argentina to win because of Messi. His career, everything, he deserves to do that. And Emi Martinez is going to have to play, extremely well against the French for them to do it. But it's going to be an intriguing game. But the standard of goalkeeping is been great. I can't remember too many massive mistakes. I don't know if you chaps do. You probably watch more games than me, but I can't remember any absolute blunders or anything like that. So it's been great to watch. But it's just a shame that we're not in the final.
No, indeed. And I mean, you speak about mistakes, Chris. I can't really think off the top of my head of any that have been, really obvious so far. And I think, as the media do, there'll be kind of very pernickety analysis about, for example, Pickford conceding France's first goal the other day. I know Ben Foster came out on his podcast and spoke about how he thought that most Premier League goalkeepers save that. But in fact, John's analysis shows that actually it's a 1 in 4 chance of a goalkeeper saving a shot from that distance and that speed in that particular game. But we speak about Emi Martinez, someone who has really come up big on multiple occasions since he broke into Arsenal's team a couple of years ago. And when we talk about these kind of top moments from a goalkeeping perspective, is there anything that has stood out to you so far, Chris, in terms of a moment that's really stuck in your head?
Well, listen, the penalties, obviously, but he was always confident with them. But I think you can see, he's not the tallest, Emi. I'm trying to think what he is now. John, you'll probably have to tell us he's 6'1".
I think he's 6. No, I think he might have been when you played with him, but I think he's about 6'4" now.
Is he? Right.
Now.
Well, he's definitely, he's grown then. I just think you can see he's confident. He comes, takes crosses. His kicking's very good. His distribution. He makes the saves. I just think it's his confidence more than anything. He believes he should be Argentina's number one. Obviously, he's at Villa now. Arsenal, he's done his apprenticeship. I think he went out on loan. Was it 10, 12 teams? I'm not sure how many teams he went out on loan to, but he's done his apprenticeship. And as I said, when I was at Sheffield Wednesday, I wouldn't have said he'd have gone and played for Argentina at that particular time. But that was, 7 years ago. Yeah, so, listen, to playing a World Cup final, if they do go on and win it, that's legendary status, and he'll thoroughly deserve it. Lloris, I'm sure he'll have something to say about it come Sunday, but it's going to be interesting to see them too, because whichever goalkeeper plays the best and has the most important moments in the game, he's going to win the World Cup, or have a good chance of winning the World Cup for their team. Which, wow, they must be absolute nervous, but also thinking, God, could go down in folklore here to win the World Cup.
No, indeed, Chris. And, we speak about pressure. We speak about having the resilience needed to perform for your country. It's a pressured environment, being away from home for a long period of time and dealing with the press. And obviously the English media, especially now, England have gone out of, had to come back on the team slightly because Southgate's cultivated a very, very good atmosphere in the England squad. And I think it's a shame we didn't see them get through to the final stage or the semi-final stage to see how they kind of once again stood up to that pressure. But you're someone who was involved in England camps from a fairly young age. You're in the 21s, obviously with the senior team as well for a period of time. How did you kind of find the dynamic in international camp? And could you just sort of talk us through how a sort of general week or a month would look like with an England team?
Yeah, difficult, mate. I didn't like going away. I've never liked being away from home. And the atmosphere wasn't great. It's been well documented. There was a divide. You'd go down for dinner and you'd sit on your teammates' table where the club you played for. So you had the Liverpool table, Chelsea, Man U, whoever else was there. So there wasn't a great team spirit, and particularly if you'd had a Super Sunday. We all remember the Super Sundays where if Man U, Liverpool played each other, or Chelsea, Arsenal, and then you're meeting up that day or that day after. We know how high tense them games are, and it did have a knock-on effect. You probably wouldn't talk to them teammates that you played against for a few days, especially if you'd lost to them in the Premier League, and that doesn't help the international stage. And that's one of the biggest reasons why they underachieved. And the players they've got, if you look at the players they had then to the players they've got now, there's not much. If anything, you wouldn't pick one over the other, and vice versa. We've got some outstanding talent in that team now. But you look back to Gerrards, Lampards, Paul Scholes, Beckham. You go back to them. Wow, what players! But it was I won't say divide, but it was the rivalry more than anything on a day-to-day basis in the Premier League that hindered England's chances. And Gareth, he recognised that straight away. He knew that was the issue. He knew he had to get them all together. He knew he had to get them all bonding. And he's done that, and you can tell by the performances. We should have beat France. We had a hell of a chance. They were on the ropes. I agree. I think the substitutions should have been made a little bit before. Rashford should have come on. Grealish should have come on. We should have really gone at them. If we'd have gone at them at 1-1, I think we were going to score. But listen, it's all easy said in hindsight. But I think Gareth's done a wonderful job in bringing not just the players back together, but the country back together again. Now, there's an excitement when England plays, and there's always that expectancy, and the expectancy in the past has been far too high for me. The pressure off the press, etc. And people say, well, they paid that much. It's got nothing to do with money. If you can feel that weight of the world on your shoulders. These players have got kids. They've got in schools. You've got all that to think about. The kids get stick because the dad's lost in a World Cup, match and stuff like that. So there's a lot of pressure that people don't even realise about. That the players will be thinking, well, I've got to win this, or my family's going to get it, or my kids are going to get it at school, and etc. like that. So there's a lot of people don't care about that, which is bad, really, really bad. All they want to do is England to succeed, which we all want to do, but they've got to realise that by them putting pressure on these players and the press putting pressure on, it doesn't help. It does not help at all.
Yeah. No, indeed, Chris. And I mean, it's interesting because I think one of the things that I know I read a couple of days ago, and I can't remember the name of the player who was writing this article or commenting in this article, but they were talking about how actually at England camps now they're fun. for the first time in a long time. And I think that's something that, as you just picked up on, Southgate's gone a long way to cultivating that kind of atmosphere. And I think one area that we do see that really healthy competition, but also a good kind of team bond, is in the goalkeeping department. I mean, under Martin Margetson and obviously Pickford, Pope and Ramsey have got 3 very, very solid number ones coming into a slightly different dynamic as their number 2, number 3 and number 1 with England. But do you believe that England are in safe hands going forward?
I do. Listen, Jordan, I've worked with Jordan at Preston for a year, and he was outstanding. He's one of the best I've ever worked with. I've said it many times. What I see now from him on occasions, when he gets wind up, when he gets interactive with the crowd, I didn't see that at Preston. He wasn't like that at Preston. He was unreal at Preston. He was, in training, everything. I was thinking, I said at the time, I said, this lad will play for England. There's no doubt about it. He's that good. I think he's calmed down a lot, particularly since he's had his baby and his child. He's obviously married now. I still think he can calm down a lot more. I think he gets himself worked up a little bit too much sometimes. But he's an outstanding and rightly the number 1 for me. Aaron Ramsdale's done brilliant since he's gone to Arsenal. Nick Pope, obviously Newcastle are flying. We've always had this conversation over the last 10 or 15 years, people saying we've not got no English goalkeepers, and we've never struggled. We've always got keepers. We had, when I was around, Ben Foster, Paul Robinson, David James. There's always keepers. There'll always be keepers coming along, and these 3 lads now will be there for the next 10 years because they're young enough. So there's no problem at all. They're playing in the Premier League. They're playing consistently well. I think Jordan is probably having the best season he's had in quite some years at Everton. Yeah. Nick Pope speaks for itself. Newcastle are flying. Aaron Ramsdale, Arsenal, top of the league. And you don't get in them positions and you're not successful as a team unless you've got, it's been said before, you need a top goalkeeper. And all 3 of them teams now, yes, Everton are struggling at the bottom, but without Jordan, they would have been in a lot worse position. So, yeah, we are in safe hands, and they've all got to push each other now. Jordan's rightly the number 1 and still should be. The goal the other night, I think he'll be disappointed. For me, he took 2 shorter steps instead of 1 big one and then shorter ones. But it's difficult. When a ball comes through someone's legs, people think you don't see it to start with. It's, you don't see it until it's probably 3 or 4 yards past that leg, and then you get a line of sight on it. But by then, it's too late with these balls and the power that players hit the ball. It's too late. But listen, he'll be disappointed. He'll be gutted he's not saved it. Is it a howl? No, it's not. Should he have saved it? Like John said there, 1 in 4 possibly. Yeah. But I think if that was me, I always look at it when I see goals. If I was in goal, would I be disappointed with that? And yeah, you would be. Listen, it's you got a chance to get through to the latter stages of the World Cup semi-final, and he will think, I've saved them before in training. I've saved them in matches. Yeah. Why didn't I save this one? But by no means it's a mistake. And as I say, I think he had a brilliant tournament, as the team did. We just come up short again, didn't we? There was a major chance for us there again. But this team's young. I've seen the amount of players that are in the low 20s. Bellingham 19. So this team will come on from that. But like I said before, sometimes the outside pressure put on these players is far too much.
No, I think it's a really interesting point you make there, Chris, because especially on the goal against France, because I think as goalkeepers, we all think we could have done better a lot of the time, I think. And obviously we have the stats saying one thing, we've got, yourself who's played at the top saying another thing and having that analysis. And I think as we turn towards John and now some of your stats, I'd like to get Chris's thoughts on kind of the usage of data, because obviously during your playing days, Chris, I'm not sure it would have been quite as pushed, quite as advanced as it is now. But nonetheless, it is becoming a huge part of the game. And I mean, John, you've got the numbers that stem from Lloris and Martinez's World Cup tournaments so far. So John, just talk us through a little bit about how they've performed to begin with statistically.
Cool. Yeah, I'll add Lloris's graphic into the chart. So Chris and many of the people watching this might not yet know exactly what we do at Goalkeeper XG, but we basically look at the probability of a goal occurring before an action happens and then the probability after. So let's say the guy's got a penalty. There's going to be like an 80% chance of that going in. If they strike it in the bottom corner with a decent power, that might go up to 85. And then if the keeper saves that, suddenly it drops down to 0. So that keeper gains 0.85 of a goal. Similarly, a cross might come in from a corner. Keeper might come and catch it. As the cross is flighted in, our model might calculate that, based on that cross's trajectory, blah, 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 there's a 10% chance of a goal. The keeper comes and catches it. Now it's 0. So we can do that for every action. You can do it for every pass, every sweep of a through ball, every bit of handling, every shot. You can do that. And when we do this for Hugo Lloris so far, the top line is he's saved France goals. So this plus 0.63 basically means he's been in the green, he's been good for France, he's been important to them. And when we break this down by game later, we'll see exactly as Chris said, his best game was against England. He had a phenomenal game and basically won them the match. And Lloris's breakdown, though, in terms of this shot stopping, which is, as everyone knows, keeping the ball out of the net. Shot preventing is like coming for crosses, sweeping up through balls, handling, so not parrying it back into danger. And then distributing is obviously all of the passes the keeper does. And Lloris's profile is very typical of how he plays. He's +1 in the shot stopping, great shot stopper, everyone knows that, very agile, wonderful tidy set position and gets around the goal well. Shot preventing, not always his forte. Sometimes struggles with crosses, sometimes a bit erratic when sweeping. But the most important point here is a lot of people use that to say Lloris is not a good goalkeeper. But clearly here, at least in this tournament, and actually in the Premier League with our data for the last 3 or 4 years, his shot stopping has by far outweighed his poor shot preventing. So he's definitely a positive for France and a big part of why they're in the final. If we look at Martinez, on the other hand, he's sort of an almost opposite goalkeeper. I wouldn't say he's a bad shot stopper, but when we look at his shot stopping graphic, Argentina just haven't conceded many shots. And because he's conceded them, he's coming up as basically around average. So minus 0.2 goals basically means like he's doing exactly what's expected. He's not been poor, he's not been amazing shot stopping wise, but this shot preventing value is huge. He's basically saved Argentina a whole goal due to the number of extra crosses, sweeps, and tidy catches he makes versus if you'd have put an average keeper in between the sticks for those. And his distribution's so far been average. But again, Argentina haven't asked him to do much distribution. So again, that's one of those, if he plays his short passes well and only has to play 10 passes a game, he's not going to be excelling in there. But I just think it's an interesting thing how the statistics can show you that different styles of goalkeepers both save their team's goals and both have allowed their teams to get into the final.
And I think it's really interesting, John, because as I was saying a minute ago, obviously in different kind of eras of football, we've had different opinions, different perspectives on the usage of data. Obviously, what Goalkeeper XG is doing is currently the most advanced models you can find in terms of assessing every variable that comes into play based on the goalkeeper's actions and also things that impact upon the goalkeeper. But Chris, from your perspective as an ex-pro, how can we kind of balance this statistical analysis, but also kind of by eye analysis, so to speak, because there's a case for both, isn't there, I suppose?
Massive. Yeah, listen, you said it earlier. Technology's gone tenfold. In the last 2 or 3 years, it's gone through the roof even more. So, but listen, I'm old-fashioned. I love seeing it eye to eye. I love seeing it as it happens live. I train a lot of keepers now, a lot of young keepers as well, and you can just tell straight away, more or less. I can tell with doing a couple of volleys at someone if they're going to be a decent goalkeeper or not. And listen, you need a lot of luck along the way. You need dedication. You need hard work. But I think you can tell by looking at someone pretty quickly if they're a decent goalkeeper or not. And then it's just how far they progress from there. Like I said, attitude, work rate, everything like that, how much they want to improve. The goalie coach is huge. It plays it. The goalie coach department is massive at any club, and they are together. We spend a lot of time together. You need that relationship with your goalkeeper coach. It needs to be a positive relationship. I've had it in my career where I've had brilliant goalkeeper coaches where I've played the best. I've had it others where the training just did not suit me. But the goalkeeper coach made it all about them and not the goalkeeper. You've got to play to the goalkeeper's strengths. You've got to train a goalkeeper to what they are good at. Yes, you can improve them on other things as well. But what makes that goalkeeper tick? The best I played was when I knew exactly what I was doing, Monday to Friday. Knew my training routine, didn't change very much at all, and that was it when I was at Wigan, and that's the best I've played during my career. When that changes and when you're not used to something else and somebody tries to change your game that you've been brought up on for years and years and years, that's when you have issues. So a lot of coaches, I see it, a lot of coaches are brilliant, and it's about the goalkeeper and how to get the best out of them and working with them, their attributes. But a lot of other coaches think it's all about them, and they'll come unstuck. And it's sad to see sometimes, but yeah, I'm old-fashioned. I like to be a judge of character by eye, and but all these stats and all that. Listen, they don't lie. It's as simple as that. And clubs, especially when they're going to go out and spend, like, look at Liverpool when they went out and bought Alisson. They did their own work. Probably not to this extent, because when they bought him, probably all this. Well, it wasn't out, was it? There was bits and bobs, but this has gone tenfold. But they did their own work. When clubs now are going to go and spend how much money, it's not, and it's not just about stats as well. It's about what they're like off the pitch, on the pitch, in the dressing room, what's the family life? I get asked a lot of questions. It's not, people know these players are very good players, but I get asked more questions now about what they're like in the dressing room, what they like as a kid, how hard do they work, what's their manners like, do they respect other players? So there's a lot going into signing players these days and trying to get the best players. But these stats, as I said, that they speak for themselves.
Yeah, and it's often difficult to kind of, as you mentioned, Chris, we can't argue with stats, but we can take a range of factors into account, like you allude to, and sort of assessing a goalkeeper. And part of what Goalkeeper actually does, as John's alluded to, for everyone out there, is that complementary approach. It's making sure that we're not kind of funneling stats in the sense that they're becoming the be-all and end-all, but they can be complementary to the playing style of a team, to what a team are looking for in terms of their goalkeepers already, and in terms of the goalkeepers they'd like to sign. And like you say, Chris, it makes sure it gives us that rounded view, right? Because there's so many things that are impacting upon a goalkeeper that are not just technical, that are not just tactical. And when we can give that kind of security in terms of, we don't have to worry about the statistical side. We know the statistical side kind of fits with the playing style. Then we can get managers, scouts, etc., can then start to find goalkeepers that fit the kind of personal profile, kind of psychological profile as well, which is really interesting. But John, you've got here the breakdown of Lloris has reached the final. Talk us through a bit what we're seeing on the screen here, but likewise the really outstanding numbers that he posted against England.
Yeah, so basically what we're seeing is in the group stage, he didn't really have loads to do. Obviously, he was rested against Tunisia, but in the group stage, he was sort of below average, not really excelling. He wasn't really helping France to the results they were getting. He didn't really have any shocking games, but it was just all very much average numbers, slightly below average in terms of how he was affecting the outcome of the match. And I've heard lots of commentators quoting after the group, so Lloris hasn't kept a clean sheet for France in 7 games. Should he be dropped? People saying crazy stuff like that. And then, the English media, as Chris said, sort of getting on the back of that. And then suddenly, against England, everything changes. He puts in a huge plus 1.2 goals performance based on all his actions. So that just means you put an average keeper in, England score 1 and a bit more goals on average. And given Kane missed his penalty as well, that basically means Lloris swung it from 3-2 England into 2-1 France. So that's a monumental performance when his country really needed him. And then actually sort of a bit of an unsung hero. I didn't see much in the media after the Morocco game about Lloris, but he made 2 or 3 huge saves in that game as well. And I think, again, a few big cross claims in the last couple of minutes to really take the pressure off. And that meant he was worth about 0.6 of a goal to France that game. So actually, after a tricky group stage, Lloris has really come through this tournament well and helped France into the latter stages. And I think there's something to be said for that mentality of there's not many keepers who could have a few quiet, off, not amazing games in the groups and then come back so strong when everyone was sort of doubting them in the knockout rounds. I think that shows you elite mentality. And as Chris says, you don't play for Tottenham and the captain of Tottenham for so many years if you don't have that kind of mentality.
I mean, John, in terms of Martinez to reach the final, we saw a kind of similar inconsistency. I think is a word that has a negative tone, but Martinez has kind of come up so big for Argentina, on so many different occasions so far. But actually, the stats are telling us there's a kind of variable in his performance. But as we'll get on to in a second, we'll look at the kind of breakdown of this in terms of handling, shot stopping, what have you. Talk us through a little bit what we're seeing here.
Yeah, so we obviously had that. And I imagine if you get the stats for most Argentina players in that first game against Saudi Arabia, he didn't have a great one. So I don't think he could do much about the second goal, but I think there was that, the first goal, the one that was curled into the top corner, a lot of people questioned about whether he was set too low. Because he was set so low, he had to go with his top hand, so he didn't have the reach maybe he could have had otherwise. And I think that plays a big part. And I don't think he was as active as crosses against Saudi Arabia, and that meant he didn't have a great game. Probably cost Argentina about a goal in terms of having an average keeper in there. And that could have really affected him. But as Chris said, he's got that elite mentality. He believes he is Argentina's number one and he will win them the World Cup. And he came flying back with that excellent game against Mexico. And we'll talk about that wonderful free kick catch that he made that was commented so heavily on by pundits and the like, saying it was a bit of a camera save, but actually it was a wonderful piece of goalkeeping. And then, we discussed in the last pod that game against Australia, a one-on-one save in the 90th minute when your team's leading by a goal in a World Cup knockout match. It doesn't really get bigger than that. And that was excellent. And then the interesting part here is the Netherlands game. So he finished just slightly minus overall, but actually this is including the penalty shootout. So at one point after the game, he was on about -1 or 2 in terms of goals. And that's because if you remember what happened in that Netherlands game, he only faced 2 shots on target the whole game. One of them was the header it was down into the ground that made it hard, but he'd misplaced his feet. And that meant he had to go full stretch dive and could only end up palming it into the roof of the net. I think that's one of those, if he's a little bit better positioned, maybe a little bit deeper, more reaction time, he can get 2 hands on that and palm it away from danger. And similarly, the last goal was a bit of a freak. And I don't blame Martinez for sort of panicking, but there was that ball into the box from the free kick, wasn't there? And then there was a toe poke. Martinez has rushed forward, sort of thinking maybe he needs to get out and engage a one-on-one. And it's just gone through his centre-back's legs and rolled in. And that's sort of why he was in the negative then. But then to be there and then come up huge with 2 penalty saves and basically bring it back to close to being average, I think massive for Martinez, because he obviously never doubted. I think I've been in that situation myself many times. Well, not many times, but a few times where you've had not the best game and then it goes to a penalty shootout and then you're sort of struggling to bring yourself up to it. You're sort of, oh God, am I going to be my usual self when I'm saving penalties, etc. And in Martinez's mind, there was just no doubt. As soon as it went to penalties, he was like, yeah, I'm going to be the hero. I'm going to do it. I don't care how I've played in the 120 minutes. And he did that, which I think is incredible mentality to do that at such a stage and to bring his team through to the next round. And obviously then had a class game against Croatia, and now they're in the final.
Didn't like his dance, though.
Yeah, after the second one, I did think, Chris, I completely agree. I thought, wait until it's the 5th penalty or the game's over. I'm always one for never celebrate, especially during a game or a shootout. Don't celebrate until 90 minutes has gone or the penalties have finished, because I think that psyched him. I think one of the penalties afterwards was pretty savable, but he'd sort of psyched himself a bit too much.
Well, it's just
out of that.
For me, it's a disrespect thing as well. It's a punch bar,
during the game. Yeah. They're still taking penalties.
Punch the air and stuff like that. But then, but listen, we all do things sometimes in the heat of the moment. But I think when he looks back on that one, he might just think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Listen, he might not. He might think he'll do it again if they win the final. But yeah, I just think that. I think we've seen a few things this World Cup in with celebrations and stuff like that, and you do get caught in the moment sometimes. But I think a lot of people will be regretting maybe some of the things they've done.
I mean, it was feisty, wasn't it? The Netherlands game. There was, I think it boiled over to a point of slightly bad feeling. I think at times, and I think it was an overboiling of emotion, definitely. But
I think they were both as bad as each other, weren't they? They were both.
I think that's a fair point, Chris.
There was a lot of stuff going on off the ball. On the ball as well. So I think they were both as bad as each other. The celebrations at the end, off Argentina, I think Holland would have probably done the same if they'd gone through. I just don't like to see that. I know you get heat of the moment stuff, but I think that's stuff that if I was involved in that and looking back on that in years to come, I'd think, oh, what an idiot! What are you doing that for? But like I said, in the heat of the moment, you do things sometimes that you later regret in life. But yeah, it was a feisty game, and I don't think that Holland are a tough team. Will it be that physical and dirty on Sunday? I don't think so. I don't think it'll be that, because I think it was over the top. More than once, it was over the top in that game. Yeah,
and I mean, let's talk penalties, Chris, for a second, because we can't go without talking about penalties on this podcast, nor as goalkeepers, but. At any point in your career, I mean, I'm sure you faced multiple penalty shootouts in big sort of games, big tournaments, what have you. And how would you go about actually preparing for those? Firstly, before the game, but also actually when that it's the 120 minutes is up, and you're thinking, hang on a minute, now we're going to penalties, in that split sort of second before actually the shootout starts. How are you preparing yourselves in those situations?
As a goalkeeper, you want it to go to a penalty shootout. That's your one moment where you can be a hero. If you don't save them, you're not expected to as much, but you've got to, every goalkeeper wants it to go to a penalty shootout. Back when I was at Liverpool, there weren't much preparation because there wasn't much analysts around. It wasn't until I went to Wigan. So 2008, 2009, 2006, that's when it first started to come in. So you'd get penalties, right? This is where they've gone the last 5 times. It used to be on a piece of paper, little X, right? This is where they've gone. This is where they've missed. This is where they've scored. And listen, yes, the analyst, but the analyst now helps a lot. But you've just got to listen. You've got to be brave. You've got to make your mind up. Don't change and go big. Whichever side you go, don't hesitate and go. And listen, you got a good chance of saving it, and if you do, you're a hero. But yeah, I wasn't great on. I don't think I faced too many, to be honest. I don't know what my stats are. You might be able to get them up eventually, John. But I don't know. I can't remember facing too many. I remember a few saves, one at Sunderland, one against Blackburn. But it'd be interesting to know really what my percentage was, because everyone says, "Well, you're that big."
I'll dig into that actually. Yeah, I'll
look
into that. After the pod, I'll get Chris
only if it's good though. I don't want to hear.
Yeah,
Don't
want to
hear this crap percentage. But yeah, I honestly could. I get asked this all the time, and because people say, "Well, you're that big, you should save a lot," but it doesn't always. It's not always that easy. But yeah, try and find out that, because I'll be interested.
No, we'll do.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I mean, John, I want to give you kind of a bit of a curveball here. I want you to pick one more graphic in the interest of time that we'll look through quickly before going on to talking about crossing. Let's go for the handling one, because I think it's an area of goalkeeping. The handling ones, I think it's an area of goalkeeping that they don't often talk about. But I'll just add this in. So these are the 5 saves Martinez has made so far. So this is the shot locations on the pitch, and then this little bottom corner is where they were going in the goal. And you can see Martinez has actually caught 4 of the 5 shots and parried 1 out for a corner, which actually is, people might not think much of that as like non-goalkeepers, but actually there never being a chance of a rebound by catching everything. And obviously there's this one in the top corner, which we discussed on one of the previous pods, which was gorgeous. The free kick flight day, Martinez wasn't going to tip it out for a corner, wasn't going to try and parry it away. Just taking the catch full stretch on the dive is wonderful. And our model at Goalkeeper XG rewards that. It knows that corners are scored about 4% of the time. And if you parry it back into danger into certain areas, it knows how likely it is to then result in a goal. So a catch instantly nullifies that to 0. And Martinez has been top class at handling so far this tournament, and basically saved around a 1/5 of a goal. So that means, if Martinez continued with this sort of form for a whole season, say, he might be saving his club, Aston Villa, due to his top handling, maybe 2 goals a season from this. And I think that's invaluable, and people don't talk about it when assessing goalkeepers, that having a great handler can make your life so much easier and make the defence, I imagine, so much more chilled out, because they know when a shot happens, they're not expecting the ball to come flying back and cause a goal-mouth scramble. Yeah, and I mean, I think, you say handling is very underrated skill, but I think one of the hardest skills to master likewise, both mentally and technically for goalkeepers, is crossing. I mean, Emi Martinez seems to have absolute hands of blue, in terms of any sort of catching and shot stopping. That's a mix of that kind of athleticism and agility that I would say doesn't just allow him to have that confidence, because he does have the confidence, I think, intrinsically to come for crosses. But the numbers around Martinez's crossing are really quite extraordinary, aren't they, John?
Yeah, so this is one of my favourite graphics when I made this. And I wasn't actually, I'd watched all the games and I'd seen all stuff. I wasn't actually expecting it to be this good. So again, this is just a map of the pitch. The white stars are where he's come and caught across, and the grey points are crosses that are claimed over 1% of the time that have gone into the box. So you can sort of see the grey points are further out, like they're rarely claimed. Not keepers will claim on average a lot. But you can see, firstly, there's no grey points in his little 6-yard box. He's not come for a cross that's been in there. And secondly, there's no. So yellow would be a punch away to safety, orange would be a punch but back into danger, and red would be come for it and completely missed it. And you can see there's none of those. It's like the perfect sort of clean graphic. And he's not just only catching things inside 4 or 5 yards away from goal. He's coming flying out and catching things 9-10 yards away from goal. And I think it's one of his great skills. And as we saw, he's been by far an above average shot preventer. And this is why. And some of these were in the game against Holland when the scores are tied. Some of these are in other games at 0-0, where he'll just come 10 yards off his line, pluck across out of the air and completely diffuse the situation. And I think, quite often, as we've said before, with other aspects of goalkeeping that aren't shot stopping, it's very underrated. But I'll tell you, his 2 centre-backs at Argentina will not underrate this skill, because it can diffuse the pressure so easily. And I imagine in the final, he'll be doing more of this. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of France's attacks get nullified due to Martinez's amazing ability coming for crosses.
That was one of his strengths, Johnny, at Sheffield Wednesday. That's one of the big things I noticed. He come and took a lot of balls, and I was the same actually. I used to pride myself on that. When you're younger, you feel you can take things, and it's not until I got over probably 30 that you're thinking, "Oh, I'm not as agile as I was. I'm not as quick as I was." And you start staying back for a lot more things. But when you're younger and you're fearless, I used to love coming out, taking it. There's no better feeling as well. But that was one of the big strengths at Sheffield Wednesday.
And Chris, when you kind of talk about coaching, younger goalkeepers nowadays and any sort of level, what kind of fundamental points are you putting in your teaching? Yeah.
Fair enough. It's amazing actually when I go if I go to a session, I've done a session over the last couple of weeks. I've not trained these keepers before, and I'll hit a volley at them which they should be catching, and they're parrying it away and diving theatrically, and I stop it and say, "What are you doing that for?" "Oh, that's what keepers do. It looks good." I went, "Do you know?" I say to them, "Do you know what looks better?" I said, "When you catch the ball." Go catch the ball. People go, "Oof, wow, good catch." So yeah, I always instill. Listen, try. If you think somebody, I can't remember who told me it was. Might have been Oggy that years ago said, "Listen, think catch to start with because you can always push away. But if you're thinking push away, you'll never catch it." Yeah. So I always just, and listen, the more experience you get, I just try and say to them, right, catch, and eventually you'll know if you're going with two hands, you're going with two hands. No, I can't quite get there. You go with one, but yeah, it frustrates the life out of me sometimes. When I go and see trainees kids, and listen, it's not their fault, it's just what they're being told to do, or they've seen it and stuff like that. But no, that's one of my biggest things. I always prided myself on hands. Oggy always used to say he had brilliant hands. Try and catch as much as you can. Joe Corrigan instilled it in me when I went to Liverpool. Jim Blythe at Coventry, and I prided myself on, I think I had pretty decent hands, and there's no better feeling when you catch one that people think, well, he could have parried that away, but he's caught it. Amazing. So that's what I teach now. That's what I always say: catch.
And I mean, like you say, John, catching the ball, killing the play. There's no rebounds. Yeah. There's security there, right? And I mean, it's a skill that's difficult to master. I think, Chris, like you say, having the confidence to actually come and being empowered, I think, by your coach to be able to come and be able to say, well, we're going to go and try and catch the ball, and not feeling like you're under that pressure not to. So I think you get a lot of young goalkeepers who are just scared of coming for crosses, but not necessarily because they don't like the physical contact, and maybe not because they're not intrinsically fearless, but because they're just scared of making a mistake. And it's really good.
Some are not good enough as well. So, listen, some are not good enough to catch. Some are as simple as that. Some have to parry or they'll punch because they're not confident in their own ability, and that's the way they've been brought, or that's their own belief. But if you start doing it from a younger age and start coaching kids from a younger age. If you start coaching kids from a younger age to catch, they'll grow up with that. I did. Yeah. I had it. I was a late developer, but from 14, really, when I started getting into goalkeeping, I'm on about younger than this now as well. If you teach it from a younger age, we will get much better goalkeepers in England. Obviously, listen, some leagues are different. You can get away with punching a lot more in the foreign leagues, and that's what they encourage a lot more. But you look at Alisson when he comes, he knows when to catch and he knows when to punch. He doesn't look to come and punch everything. Shot stopping, everything like that. He's got it bob on. Some of the shots, I've been down to Melwood, down to AXA in Melwood, and watched him train. And I'm on about rockets off the strikers, rockets off the goalkeeper coaches, and his hands are unreal. Like
he's number one in the Premier League, Chris, on our model for handling. Like he just catches stuff other keepers will.
I didn't know that, but if you'd have asked me who you think is, I'd have said, listen, if there's anyone better than Alisson, I'll be amazed. So that just proved what I've seen at training. I took Lucy down a few times, and we were both honestly absolutely gobsmacked at what I was watching. What I was watching him do in training. And I'm on about balls from 6 yards, not just outside. I'm on about volleys smashed off the deck. John Achterberg smashing them at him in top corners, and he was plucking them out of the air. And I was thinking, Jesus Christ, this lad is. I mean, this was, I was thinking, wow, this is unreal. I couldn't believe. We both come away and sat in the car and just looked at each other and went, oh my God, he's unreal. And he's proved it every year. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that, but he's got it spot on, and he knows when to catch and knows when he can't catch.
Yeah, and I mean, Chris, you've actually very nicely tied segments into each other for me there, because we're going to move away from the World Cup for a minute, as the return of domestic football across Europe's top division is nearly upon us. And I spoke to Leeds United goalkeeper coach Mark Osabad, who talked us through how he and his goalkeeper department have been preparing for the return of the Premier League, and how they've been working on their international camps and what have you away from the Premier League so far. Scenario, how are you kind of making sure that your goalkeepers at Leeds are ready to go back into club football? Because of course there's going to be that shift in dynamic from a long period off that we don't normally see over the winter. What are you doing specifically kind of in the training camp and then back in Leeds to make sure you guys are ready to go back into domestic football?
Yeah, I think so. This break is different than in summer, especially because it's just 2 weeks. In terms of physical work, I think so the players they keep fit. So and even that they 1 week was with monotorized a few work at home. So I think so. We know that they are really professional. We have a beautiful squad, and honestly, our dressing room is amazing. One of the best in my career. So they are so professional, and the staff is pushing that to keep that. Then the keepers, I think so, is part of all of that. Then we are happy in these terms. But it's true that we have we created our own test, because you know that it's very common to create a few tests like a speed yo-yo speed. But okay, it's fine. The CMG, you know me, like to jump, everything like this. To don't be very specific, but you know me what I'm saying. All of that is really general. Then we created from the last year a few tests specific for goalkeepers, probably from our method, from our demandings in competition. That is a test that 3, 4, 5 that can let us more properly how they came and how they are in terms of fit and how we are in that moment. Then I think so the data was honestly the same. They are fit, they are ready. Honestly, they came fresh with the hungriness that we expect, and honestly I'm so happy with them because they transmit me the passion that make sense what I'm doing every day. And doesn't matter if you invest 12, 13 hours per day, because this passion that they transmit, the love from the work that they are doing, in the end is what let me find the sense about what we are doing. So.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. So whoever you're supporting on Sunday, we wish them the best of luck. But for now, with Glove, that's me. This is John. This is Chris. Thanks very much, guys. And that's goalkeeper.com. Yes. See you later.